Okay, how do we even start with this, Kyle?
All right, Christians.
I'm scared to even talk about this
So
again.
Christians and other people that...
I think we've tried before.
Christians and other people that like, just listen to us because you're cool with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a crazy time. And you're looking out there and you're going, my city's burning down and I don't know how to respond to this. Well, guess what? Neither do we. This is not the podcast to listen to get all your answers. Talk to your pastor.
Talk to your pastor.
This has been the topic of the week. Not really, but we just kind of wanted to explore and discuss a little bit just how crazy things are and how we're going to...
we're not trying to tell you what to think here, but I do think that there's a lot of emotions going through people's heads and thoughts, and a lot of people are saying a lot of stuff, right? We're going to look at some of the stuff people have been saying.
Matt Walsh posted a video of white people kneeling before black people.
That was a little weird. I understood the sincerity of it.
We apologize for our whiteness, that kind of thing, right?
Right. And I understand praying for the situation. And they even said later on that everybody was kneeling, the black people were kneeling too. But
so maybe there's something more there.
There's something more there, but it is weird. It feels like all this critical race theory stuff. It feels like more racism to end racism. That's what I don't get. That's why I have such a hard time with all of it. If the end goal is to reach a point where race is just not a big thing.
I don't think that is.
And that's not the goal.
I don't think that is their goal a lot of times.
And that's what I have a tough time with, is we're on this endless cycle of, this has been going on my entire life. These stuff, kind of bubbles to the surface. Everybody gets mad. There's riots. Everybody gets mad and hates each other. Everybody says we're in this horrible racist country. And then comes down, then comes back around. There's Rodney King back when I was about 12, even before I was born, I think in the 60s and stuff. And it just keeps coming back around.
Yes, there were racist issues before you were born.
It's true. I'm just saying my whole life.
I know
but everybody acts like it's brand new. Like I said, my 13-year-old daughter right now is she's acting like she just discovered it. And we don't know. She's constantly telling my wife, you need to educate yourself. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Why is it happening? Why is this happening?
I felt growing up with friends and everything and in church, we didn't even think about that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
And as kids, you don't really think about it. And I know people just call that as it's white privilege or whatever. But it seems like now it's something that's touching all areas of life. And you if you don't talk about it, you're racist.
Right. and it's also becoming, it's becoming very like a religion where you have to say certain, you have to make certain creeds and certain, you have to recite certain canonical scriptures in order to be okay. In order to approve yourself. And so that's one of the weird things about all the statements people are making. There's, all this weird stuff about bowing before black people and stuff. It's just weird. I would never want black people to bow before white people. I don't know. Is that a weird thought?
Dean of Union Seminary tweeted or said, "What has alienated America from its very soul, thereby virtually normalizing violence against black lives? Answer: whiteness itself." It really is like this religion.
What does that mean?
It's this religion where there are words we hear whiteness saying white people are bad, and they're like, no. Whiteness is a whole category. It's a whole category of unapproved thinking and these instilled values of racism that we all have without knowing it. And see, because we hear that and we just go, so you're saying that you're judging people based on their skin color. You're saying that I have a problem because I am white.
Mm-hmm.
But they mean something else with whiteness. They mean something that has some sort of weird, Gnostic meaning that we can't really grasp.
It's religious, right? It's a religious
thing. It really is.
It's sin. It's original sin. Every religion has original sin, right?
Right.
Correct. There's an NBA announcer suspended for tweeting "All Lives Matter." And that's the weird thing, too. That's the frustrating thing about all this is, you can't... None of this can be debated on the grounds of objectivity or evidence or any of that stuff. That's actually, to even say that is problematic. And then there's, the twisting of language, which I disagree with a lot of people who come back with all lives matter. I think they're wrong to do that. You're not saying Black Lives Matter doesn't negate, like take any noun and then say something about that noun. It doesn't negate all the other. Say cupcakes are sweet. Doesn't mean that no other food is sweet.
Sure.
And so but also it'd be weird to start like a giant movement saying, because that implies that I guess people get defensive because there's an accusation that a large amount of people don't think that Black Lives Matter, and we feel like we're being cornered and we have to accept a certain we have to abandon objectivity, evidence, what we perceive to be any kind of solutions. It's just this person's voice has authority to say whatever it wants because they are in this position of whatever their skin color is or whatever. And that's where truth comes from now. So it's not a common truth that we all can go for together. And to me, that just is it's an endless cycle. It's going to never end. It's going to be, there's always going to be a victim of the time fighting.
Yeah. And it's weird because I feel like I can't tweet, the black square everybody's doing or the hashtag Black Lives Matter, because I know that has associations with you have to accept our set of solutions.
Right.
And it's like, well, I can believe that Black Lives Matter and I can oppose police brutality without saying, therefore, communism, or whatever, therefore critical race theory, therefore Marxism, or all this.
Right.
So it's weird that you have, their solution is integrated with what they believe the problem to be. So I feel like it's kind of weird.
And the whole conversation about equality in a world, I mean, if we culturally believe in evolution, there's nothing in evolution that says anything about equality. It doesn't make any sense that we'd have any kind of equality, because everybody would be evolved from, you can't imagine that we all evolved from the one same thing. We're just all exactly equal. Like it's if you look at the original title of The Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin, it's a longer title. I can't remember all the words, but it was basically explaining why white people are superior to black people. It was purely racist.
Yeah.
And the idea that that we can't point outside of ourselves for equality. We can't go, we are equal because of this if we throw God out of the picture, if we're not created, that if we are a truly secular species that is evolved, there can't be a source other than we have to have people in authority, in power, who are deciding what equality means, which itself is unequal because they are the equalizers, right?
Yeah, as Joe Biden eloquently said, all men are created equal by...
the guy. The thing.
The thing. And he's absolutely right.
But I guess that's what I'm coming to, is without pointing outside ourselves, having something we can all look to, a truth we can all point to, it's going to be an endless cycle of power.
I feel like we're living in two different countries when I look at like these protests, and I just see, I see people decrying police brutality across the board. Like nobody's for that, but you have one side that's just like, this is a huge problem. And you have one side that's like, I think things are okay and pretty good. And yeah, there are some issues.
It's almost like proof that what better could have been done. And besides, it's horrible that obviously the George Floyd, right, died in that situation. But with that being the facts of the situation, the reaction seemed incredibly swift and unanimous. And yet it's the worst riots and the worst.
Yeah,
this is the worst I ever remember it being.
I don't remember the timeline.
That's one reason I blame COVID partly.
So because usually this kind of stories happen, and that's what's so frustrating. As it happens, and it's like, oh well, the police officer's been promoted. Yeah, we in order to solve the problem of him killing black people, we took him off the streets and we put him at a desk job where he makes more money. That kind of stuff, and you like, this is insane. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how swift the response was. It may have been that they didn't charge him quickly enough. And I still have seen stuff from the Minneapolis city and the police where they're saying like, well, George Floyd, we're calling the death not asphyxiation. We're calling the death, he had previous medical problems. Yeah. And when you combine that with the force, it was a problem. You're like, well, most people would have problems if you shoved your knee into their neck for 9 minutes. Yeah. So there are still things there that are an issue and need to be addressed there. I don't know. It definitely feels to me like you've got a lot of opportunists that were ready for this kind of thing to jump out and start some crazy kind of revolution, and
Yeah.
and they're jumping on it, Yeah, because I look at the riots and the looting, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with George Floyd.
Yeah.
And I see other people tweeting about it, like,
Well, even George Floyd's family said
yeah, I know.
they're using my brother's death to be stupid.
So it's like we're in two realities, because I see that and I'm like, this is crazy. This has nothing to do with George Floyd anymore.
Yeah.
And you see other people saying, look,
Yeah, there's people that are just angry. They're angry about the presidency and the direction of the country, right? They're taking all that out.
and then other people are saying, well, what are they supposed to do? They have to get your attention somehow. So they're
Yeah.
going to burn down your home and take all your stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like two different worlds in a lot of ways.
What else we got here? We got the Campus Crusade for Christ is holding segregated prayer meetings.
Like a safe space for people of color in one meeting
I don't
and
know.
white people in another meeting.
I think that's like what I want, because I know that we live in two different worlds. So if anybody, and I assume probably not listening to this or watching this if you're on the left, but if you are trying to understand us, I feel like the big misperception is that if I don't go along with what Democrats or the left say we need to do to solve the problem of racism, then that's proof that I'm racist. And my position is that I don't think that the goals of that side are good. I don't agree that the path is to these, like, to further anger, to further segregate, to further enrage and create more. I feel like the greatest freedom of being white is that you don't hardly think about it. And I want that freedom for black people. And I feel like it's getting worse. Like, it's just, instead we're trying to go in this other direction where we have to sit around and feel horrible for being white all the time and create a white identity. And I'd rather just get rid of those. Skin color is not an identity. It needs to stop being one. So to me, that's the goal I'm trying to head towards. And it's a different goal,
Yeah, and so I see a lot of friends and stuff tweeting with the Black Lives Matter hashtag and all that, and it's concerning to me. Black Lives Matter on their actual website with their what we believe, it's like it's all this like Marxist terminology.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can believe Black Lives Matter, and I mean, I'm more against police brutality than most people.
Yeah, you're like
I don't think most of the activities of the police are even legitimate.
Kyle's very anti-cop.
Like,
just not all the way, but he's up there until some psycho starts.
Oh man,
picking on his wife. Yeah.
I am not anti-cop, Ethan.
He's anti-authority. Well, you're the anarchist.
I feel like currently most of the activities of police officers tend to just be unconstitutional, like driving around just giving people tickets for like what are we doing? A lot of times they're enforcing unconstitutional laws. A lot of times they escalate problems when they go into areas, and all of those are legitimate complaints. When you have like a domestic dispute, you call the cops, they come, all of a sudden you have a gun into the situation.
Yeah.
And that's where you end up with a lot of shootings. So here's from the Black Lives Matter website. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status, or location. We make space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. We build a space that affirms black women and is free from sexism, misogyny, and environments in which men are centered. We engage comrades with the intent to learn about and connect with their context.
It's a peculiar word.
We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other's extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. We foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, the belief that all in the world are heterosexual. So there's like a lot of like...
It goes quite beyond blackness.
It's hand in hand with identity politics.
Right.
Now, I know that the hashtag Black Lives Matter people aren't always referring to the organization, But I think that's kind of, the people that started it and all that. So that's what's concerning to me is I can agree there's a problem without agreeing with you on the solution.
Right.
And they don't see that.
Yeah.
Like that was if you're not with us, you're against us kind of a rhetoric.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, because I'm black and I've been oppressed, I get to pick the solution. But it's like, in the end, if the solution is getting to a point where this is all so far behind us, it's like talking about, the Mongol wars or some things that's so far in the past that it doesn't affect us. If the goal is to get past it that far, then it really is both of our solution, right? It's like we have to come to a solution that works for everybody, not because your skin color, you get to decide, it's my turn. That's not the way to solve a thing. Like you don't go, kids get in a fight and this one hits one, you go, all right, it's his turn to hit you now.
We have tried that before.
I have told my kids when the little one hits the bigger one, I'm like, smack him back. He needs to find out not to hit the bigger one. It's dumb.
Well, if only God would have sent us somebody who could bridge the racial divide.
Yeah, somebody who understands.
Between races. If there was only somebody who could knock down that wall of hostility.
If only the old man upstairs were listening.
This is where the organ starts to play. If only there were someone. If only.
Who understood suffering.
Who understood. Yeah, that's what's amazing to me as the church, when you see people in the church start to embrace things like critical race theory and Marxism, and it's like, we have a solution. We have the gospel.
Yeah. God
already broke down that wall of hostility between Jews and Gentiles and any other races that hated each other.
Right.
He has made peace with God through the blood of Jesus' cross. Galatians 3:28, there's neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free man. There's neither male nor female, for we are all one in Christ Jesus.
I always find it interesting, people spray painting the word justice everywhere. You hear the word justice. I mean, to me, the word justice itself is a cry out for God, because the very word justice, the very concept of justice, can't exist physically. It's a concept.
Yeah, it's intangible.
We all want it. We all are born desiring it. And if it doesn't exist in some place outside of us, then it's a thing we just make up. And so without God, I mean, that's the classic C.S. Lewis. When he realized it was his disbelief in God was too simple because he believed the world was so unjust that there must not be a God. And then he realized, how would he even know what justice would be if there wasn't something missing and something that we're pointing to in our, it's almost like being born a fish and water not existing. It's like there's a thing that you were born to need and to thirst for. That means it exists. The justice is not physical; it's unattainable in an imperfect world, and the only path to justice is to God through Christ. So, and I just believe the whole idea of justice being in our hands as human beings, as sinful human beings, it's always going to fail.
Amen, brother Ethan.
And you're gonna be coming out of the old the pottery company with a bunch of new pottery or something, like screaming justice as it burns behind you, and the poor Korean lady who built it with all her blood, sweat, and tears is like losing everything, and you got a free armload of pottery, and you're doing in the name of justice.
Well, stay safe out there. If you go looting, remember to bring permission slip from your mom and dad.
Bring a fat friend who can't outrun the police.
Yeah, wear your Che Guevara shirt.
And it's also good to bring a friend who can lift, a lifting buddy, which I guess the fat friend can help lift.
Remember the back brace and the dolly? Mm-hmm. A lot of those TVs are fairly heavy.
Yeah, bring your trusty strangling rope.
And you
in case you want to murder anybody.
You can show that you care about justice too.
Yeah.